After a couple of months break, we're finally back with more Star Trek Prodigy, with our motley crew having just escaped the clutches of the Diviner. What awaits them in this next arc of the story? Well, luckily we've got the latest episode to talk about. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get right into it. Star Trek Prodigy is back, and hence our reviews of this brand new animated series have returned. Yay! Prodigy is a show that has really snuck up upon us, just how good it really is, and we're very excited to watch this brand new episode and talk about it. Of course, this episode is titled Kobayashi, which is fascinating considering we just only got a Star Trek Discovery episode titled Kobayashi Maru. The episode was written by Aaron J. Walk and directed by Alan Wan. Alan Wan has recently directed episode 3 of Prodigy, Star Trk, who seems to be a regular director for the series. Of course, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. With our last episode of Prodigy being all the way back in November, it wouldn't be surprising if you forgot what happened last time. With this brand new episode not even giving a recap in similar vein to Discovery or a last time on Star Trek Prodigy. But despite this, at least for me there was no big disconnect between the two episodes. It helps that episode 5 of the show ended very much on a strong cliffhanger of a Prodigy escaping of a Diviner, with the use of a newly discovered and activated proto-drive. The episode does a remarkably good job at reintroducing to this world of Prodigy, and getting you up to speed on what's happening, where these characters are. But apart from that itself making the episode really good, this episode had a lot going for it, and I can't wait to talk more about it. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Kobayashi Maru plotline of the story. This was probably the best love letter Trek I've seen in a long time, and actually got pretty emotional. Having a Kobayashi Maru test be on the USS Enterprise D bridge with an on-screen depiction of the Kobayashi Maru previously only seen in Star Trek 2009 was amazing. But that would have been perfectly fine, but no, Prodigy had to go one step further and bring us back some Trek legends to populate the bridge for the test. We got Uhura, Odo, Dr. Crusher, Spock and Scotty all coming back, with the original lines used from their shows, with Dr. Crusher seemingly getting Gates McFadden back to record some lines. Not only does it make sense, as a holodeck would be using pre-existing content of a person to replicate their voices. Even though some of the audio quality was noticeably weird, I much prefer this to getting some random voice actor who would do a close approximation of these characters and actors' voices. It very much honoured their legacy in Trek rather than simply utilising it. We even got the mention of Kobayashi Maru help messaged by David Rushin in this episode, which was amazing. This use of the holodeck also felt extremely meta. We've seen in previous Treks a holodeck being populated with people our characters enjoy and respect, from Leonardo da Vinci to Stephen Hawking. But let's all be completely honest, if we were in the holodeck we would have the Trek characters interacting with us. And let's talk about our favourite characters. You know, talking about this, we do have to talk a little bit about the characters that were allowed to be inserted into this scenario. When the computer gives Dahl this option, we see numerous deltas from different Star Trek eras, from TOS all the way to DS9, but some of the comm badges that really fascinated me were alternate timeline comm badges and future comm badges. We got the Future Imperfect comm badge, the All Good Things comm badge, and the 29th Century Starfleet comm badge. Now where would we be seeing these comm badges? I assume because these events would have been known to the Federation, as they would be in officer logs, though hopefully there have been more incidents with the 29th Century Time Police, or otherwise your only real option is Captain Braxton to assist you, and that guy probably isn't the best choice at the end of the day, though there is his sort of time agents as well. I don't know, there's a lot of choices. And then having Spock give advice to Dal on how not only to be a good captain, but also to be a good person was so good. This just goes to show the legacy of Spock. Not only are we getting new shows of a character of Strange New Worlds, but also hearing his words and legacy in other shows, from Star Trek Discovery to Star Trek Prodigy.
And what is it that makes one man an exceptional leader? No disrespect intended, but you must surely realize you can't announce the full truth to the crew. You're the captain of this ship. You can't afford the luxury of being anything less than perfect. If you do, they lose faith.
This episode was dedicated to those we had lost, from Rini Orbajonis, who had recently left us, but to Leonard Nimoy and James Doohan, who inspire us to go boldly every day, as I said at the start of the end credits of this episode. Of course, back in the present we have to talk about Gwen. Gwen is great in this episode, especially for her interaction with Zero. It's fascinating with Zero being able to read thoughts, but not being able to perceive Gwen's, yet know her emotion from her outward appearance, and having to ask, penny for your thoughts. Also, it's a nice little lore-building touch for Medusans, knowing that their communities form a Medusan hive mind, and just how traumatic it must have been for Zero to be ripped from that. But the most fascinating thing we got from this episode was the origins of Gwen. Yes, we knew the Diviner was the father of Gwen, and they were both the last of their kind, but we never thought Gwen would actually be, I guess, technically a clone of her father. The reasoning behind why the Diviner chose to create a progeny is also very fascinating. Jumping away from it, let's talk about Murf. So Murf is the usual Murf in this episode, and managed to eat a box of photon grenades. It's great to see photon grenades back in Star Trek, which haven't been seen or mentioned since Star Trek Voyager. Though with how the show is tied to Voyager, this is not really surprising at the end of the day. Hint hint, please have a show linked to DS9. That would be great. But what about this scene basically tells us, which has been told before, is basically Murf is that they're basically indestructible. As even though the grenades do go off inside of him, or her, or they, it is not the worst to wear. This is probably the most charged aspect of this episode, Murf changing shapes and a little fart joke at the end, but it's nothing too bad to detract from the rest of the episode. So the final scene of this episode are massive, including a flashback scene before what the USS Protostar means. We can assume that Protostar was made sometime before the year 2366, and its existence was made aware somehow to entities of the Delta Quadrant. However, that could be. Specifically the line of the diviner saying, "Many failed before, years wasted." However, this line could link to the capabilities of a Protostar, being able to harness a Protostar for warp travel, which seems to be massively more powerful than that of artificial singularities, which Romulan starships harness for their warp travel. A possibility is that a Vulcanar are somehow reasonable for their technology, and the Federation merely appropriated it for their technology. This could be how the Diviner knows about the Federation, and why the files pertaining to the Protostar are encrypted in the language of a Vulcanar. It is definitely a possibility, and I massively look forward to finding out more about this, even more than I previously was. But let's talk about Chakotay, who is finally revealed in this episode as the former captain of the USS Protostar. It's kind of obvious it was meant to be a really big reveal of this episode, which would have been amazing going into this episode and not knowing about Chakotay's return, because it was revealed by his actor, Robert Beltran, later last year. So with Chakotay being the captain of a Protostar, we can assume he only took command by the time Voyager returned to the Federation in 2378. However, with the knowledge of a Protostar being available to the Diviner 17 years prior, in the year 2366, we can assume that Chakotay probably isn't the first captain of the starship, and these assumptions are made without the inclusion of time travel, because personally I would not want to further complicate things, but this is Star Trek, so brace yourselves. If the Protostar was being developed that long ago, and with Chakotay being a commander, we can assume that timeline is that Protostar was created and started to be tested in 2366. By the time Voyager had returned, Chakotay was given captaincy of the starship, or requested it and given a mission. What that mission was, who knows, but for some reason that ship ended up in the Delta Quadrant and eventually in Tars Lamora. However, it is worth mentioning again that a Protostar was left in a dense location of Chimerium, which can scatter scanners. So was it intentionally placed there? But why was it abandoned? It was basically operational and only required POG to do some simple, persuasive maintenance. These are all good questions which I'm sure we'll get the answer to going forward. The knowledge that Chakotay became captain makes the inclusion of a Janeway hologram both make sense. Chakotay would want Janeway with him, offering advice over a cup of coffee. But obviously the actual Janeway just wanted a desk job after the events of Voyager, and became a vice admiral, which we see in Star Trek Nemesis. Troy, edit that clip in, please.
Aye. One eye, yeah. I know.
Captain, you have an alpha priority communication from Starfleet Command.
Acknowledged. Admiral Janeway, how good to see you again.
Jean-Luc, how'd you like a trip to Romulus?
With or without the rest of the fleet.
But there is definitely more to this mystery than we first thought, and it'll be fascinating to see it unveil itself as we get more episodes as well. Though I do have to currently ask, where's Chakotay right now? We actually put on a theory video on Chakotay's captaining the Protostar a while back, thanks to Ensign Hamish for hosting that.
I've been Ensign Hamish, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper. I can't do it.
Though this news of a Protostar's development has put a hole in some of that theory. It's interesting, with also some rumours from a trusted website on the other crew members of Chakotay's Protostar. If you're interested in that video, a link is on screen now and a link in the video description. Okay, so our final thoughts on this episode is that it was an amazing episode, and also we're super excited to have Star Trk Prodigy back on our screens. The Kobayashi Maru segment was absolutely amazing and was a rich love letter to Trek as a whole, honoring our past in a show that is also giving to our future. And even though the scene was extremely fan service, it served a narrative and made sense of what was happening on screen. Having Spock be one to give the advice to Dial on how being a captain was just so sweet. Gwen's turmoil in this episode was actually great and really well delivered, with some great scenes between herself and the rest of the crew. From Dal starting to show support for her as a crewmate, to Zero and Roktak who actually take a bit of a shining to her, and actually care about her and what she's going through. Finally, the intrigue of the series with the ship and everything around it heightens, and I can't wait to see where this is going, and when we'll actually find Captain Chakotay. And as always, the score of this episode was great. even if the rock music for the final Kobayashi Maru simulation was a little weird, because we all know it would have been sabotaged by the Beastie Boys, obviously. But Naomi Millamad continues to do a great job on the show, and personally I can't wait to hear more from her. Hopefully you get this score distributed like the Lower Decks and other shows as well, because I want to listen to this on Spotify. Alright, that's all from us on this review. What did you think of this episode? If you could pick a crew member for the Kobayashi Maru test, who would it be on? And if you do have any theories surrounding the mystery of the USS Protostar, do let us know what you think in the comment section below. Of course, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and my team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.